Good afternoon. It's Joyful Christian Hermit. We'll say this is Lenten Update 19. Taking a guess. I'm going to share about John the Hermit, but there's several John the Hermits. This is a John the Hermit, I think from the 4th century. And because this is the one that's celebrated on March 27th, which is today. I'm back from many hours. How many? 6 hours. 6.5, including driving there and back. And I don't think I really accomplished much. I got maybe a quarter of a little tiny area of tiles out. I got those out and chipped away at a little bit of, not much, a little bit of this concrete. I'm not good at chipping it out, but my daughter's hand is too sore, an elbow, and she needs that for her sport. So I was trying to do it, but I don't have the knack, I guess. I need to get sharper chisels, sharpen my chisels. I tried using a what's it called? Has the little things on metal file. I tried that, but anyway, this is little Mercy here. She's wants attention. That's her mouth and her nose right in the video. And she was playing with her little pink piggy, her favorite toy that my niece sent her when she was a baby. And we've actually had to replace it once already because it got so worn and chewed up. But it squeaks, so she plays music with that. Likes to get attention doing that. But John the Hermit, I like him because he was very ascetic, this one. And he started out being a carpenter. He was born in 304 in Egypt, so he was 4th century. And when he was about 25, he went to the desert to pray and was to become one of the most famous hermits of his time. It says here that for 10 years he was the disciple of an elderly hermit. And somebody gave his name. I'll try to find that one too and share that one. John called him his spiritual father. And after the older monk's death, St. John spent 4 or 5 years in various monasteries. Finally, he found a cave in the high rocks, in rocks up on a cliff. And it was very remote. And it was so difficult to get to, that's why he chose it. And rather dangerous. People didn't just want to climb up there on that cliff to find him. So he had more solitude that way. So it was quiet and protected from the desert sun and winds. We're having a lot of winds today. Tonight we are. He divided the cave into 3 parts: a living room, a workroom, and a little chapel. So, nice cave, and it's basically the rooms I exist in. My bedroom, now I have my dresser over there set up as a chapel, has a crucifix and candles, and a gift from an elderly friend who passed. It was Hummel figures of Flight into Egypt, so that's over there. And the dresser is one that my great-great-grandfather built. So it has like 2 tiers at the top. So it just is nice altar. But upstairs is my official chapel. It's not really set up yet. But Our Lady, I'm going to call it either Our Lady of Solitude or Rosa Mystica Chapel. Put your vote in for which name you like better. And then this bedroom, and then I go out into the kitchen to get whatever I'm going to eat, and come back here, lay here to eat it, bowl of fruit, or had eggs this morning, and the little doggies have their meals back here too. And other than that, a bathroom. So I don't use any of the other rooms of the house. I knew I wouldn't. It was an investment house is what it was. So, well, we'll hope it will end up that way. So with John the Hermit, people in the area brought him food and other necessities, which was very kind of them to do that. Well, my neighbor brought me it was delicious, a chicken pot pie the other night. I hadn't even thought about dinner, and I was exhausted coming back from helping. I did more work that day. I seemed to accomplish more that day. Oh, I pruned down a rose today, too. Did that and did a lot of moral support and and talking, and talking over situations and disappointment because the daughter went out to see how much went to this rental place and was told that really the big floor grinder will be too heavy for us. We won't even be able to push it, she said. Which is strange because the YouTube video shows a woman using it. So I'm going to have to check with we're going to go to a different Home Depot tomorrow. The one that I think has the quality people there, the more people who are retired working there, who worked in the fields. Hopefully there'll be somebody there who could give us good advice on that. Otherwise we're going to just have to hand chip and then use she bought it, a little hand grinder, angle grinder. It's electric, but it's very small, 4.5-inch disc is all. So, but here John the Hermit, people brought him his food and other necessities, and many also came to seek his advice about important matters. I used to have people ask me things, but that was way back when I was in my hometown. They would come or ask me to pray for different things. One young woman had gotten married to a man who hadn't been married before, and she'd had an unfortunate first marriage. And she'd just married this man not long, and he strayed. Who knows why? It was horrific. So she came and asked my advice, and I said, we'll pray, and you've got to deal with him on this. And he agreed to get counseling, and it was just a very human, pathetic reason. And the woman who worked for him really seduced him also. Sometimes women will do that. It can be a big boost to them, especially if someone's just married someone, to go after the person. People are sick. A lot of people are very sick, and the devil works on that. Their egos or their insecurities or their competition. It was like a competition thing that he got married, and this employee was determined to get him to cheat, wanted him. So it was a one-time thing, and he confessed it to the wife. He knew, obviously, it was just really bizarre, demonic, but he made amends, they got counseling, and they've been married ever since, very happily. It's been 28 years. So, but what a bizarre situation. And that was truly a case. And of course the employee got fired, did all she could to seduce him, was excited. It was like a big challenge when he married to go after the boss. And oh my. So I suppose John the Hermit had situations like that, people coming, wanting his prayers, wanting his counsel, what to do, and others. So the Emperor Theodosius asked his advice twice, so that was big time. I didn't have anything like that. God tended to give me assignments. In 388 and in 392 were the exact years. So he was late in life then when the emperor asked his advice. Saints Augustine and Jerome wrote about the holiness of John the Hermit. When so many people came to visit him, some became his disciples. They wanted to learn from him. They stayed in the area and built a hospice. And in that case, it wasn't like a health hospice. It was a place for people to come to stay. People who wanted to learn from John would come and stay for the time period they were learning, and then they would decide, where they were going to go off to be hermits or go back into the temporal world or become monastics, etc. So, that gave them a place to stay. St. John had the gift of prophecy and was able to look into the souls of those who came to him. And that's like Padre Pio. He was also a healer. He had the gift of healing. Even when John became famous, he remained humble and lived a very frugal life. He never ate before sunset, so he went all day without food, and he ate after sunset. When he did eat, his food was dried fruit and vegetables. He never ate meat or cooked. He didn't cook. Well, that would be convenient. I have come to an ascetic way of life, but it's not by my own discipline. It's from pain. But God has, had my pain increase. He gave me something that my pain has progressed to the point where I can't really stand long to cook. So I like tonight, I'm going to have a little bowl of beets, baked beets that I made the other night. It has onion with it and garlic and olive oil and some of my herbs that are pretty much dried up out there, but I used them anyway. And I'll have a fruit salad. That's going to be my dinner. And I had a protein bar this afternoon. It was sort of disgusting, but at least I get protein that way. I'm grateful for whatever I have, but I can't cook meals. My back just can't handle it, especially if I'm going to try to help someone with work, manual labor, which is helping me because I'm sore. I'm building up muscles. I'm building stamina by force. I want to help, and it's the kind of encouragement that requires elbow grease, as my dad would say. So we can, I guess we can come to asceticism through our natural condition, And I have enough pain. I'm never hungry. I don't really have an appetite for food. Can't say I enjoy it. So, it's automatic asceticism. Sort of cheating, I feel like. It's not, it's by grace. It's by God's grace, nothing of my own. Not my discipline, not my determination. Oh, I'm going to be ascetic. It just has happened. It's happened. But in older times, I did, like I got rid of my clothes but then I reaccumulated, so I would try to fit in, blend in. It was an experiment I tried, and it failed. I never blended in. So now I have those clothes to sell, but I never need to buy another thing in my life, so that's nice. I appreciate that. I've had them for 25 years now. I don't like to, no, 20 years. 20 years. I don't like to shop. It's hard on me. Standing on the concrete and people, the noise, the activity, it makes my pain worse. So by grace, we can be ascetics. So in old age, he was visited by the historian Palladius. Palladius's account of their meeting exists to this day. I'm going to try to find that. John died in 394 at the age of 90. Now, other accounts said 89, so it's in the ballpark. So that's one account of John. I wanted to find this one. I have to make sure I get John this one will be accurate. Oh, no. Well, phone, cooperate. Now this one they call him Venerable John. Other ones called him Saint John. That's because people decided who knew him and over the centuries knew he was a saint. He didn't need to be canonized. So it says he began his ascetic life at a young age, according to records. He was born in the 4th century, so that's accurate, in Armenia. This is new information. To Juliana. His mother was Juliana, a devout Eastern Orthodox Christian mother. And here's the name of his spiritual father, Saint Pharmutius. Saint Pharmutius, Pharmutius, who discipled him for a time. Well, I think it was about 10 years is what we'd read before. John was the spiritual son of Saint Pharmutius. Oh, I already read that. Eventually, John chose to enter into a greater solitude, taking abode in the depths of a dry well. So this is news. Well, Pharmutius would bring him bread daily, bread provided by an angel according to sacred tradition. Well, we don't know if that's true or not. Now, I don't have a problem with it because we've heard with other hermits that ravens would bring the bread. Paul, the first hermit, had a raven bring him bread, and there was another one recently, a different hermit, that a raven brought him bread also. So what difference does it make? Could be true or not. They were miraculous human beings. They loved God to a high ideal and standard, and they lived the holy narrow pathway. So if people got excited and, maybe one time some miraculous occurrence that, a creature brought them bread, and then it got to be every day they brought it bread, or if a raven or a bird or a lion wasn't their friend or whatever, these legends, doesn't matter. They're still very holy people and great mentors for us. But of course, we've already talked about that, how people can get very excited over if they think, oh, a saint. And then they start making up things. Like I'd mentioned in one of the videos that Rose of Lima's neighbor, it eventually was found out that she had made up that Rose of Lima had a rose hover over her lips, over her mouth when she was born. Instead, it was the neighbor really said, well, her lips looked like a rosebud. The little baby's lips did. So, and she didn't have a rose hovering over her lips. So, anyway, but these things happen. So we don't know if if an angel brought the bread or if it was just a tradition that was passed on from generation to generation. Stories told, excitement about the saint. Venerable John lived the life of a hermit with great ascetic fervor. It says here for 10 years. We'd already read that in a different account. And then he is known to have gone to the Lord. So they didn't give the time of his death. He's commemorated on the 29th of March in the Orthodox Church and the Eastern Catholic Churches of Byzantine Rite. In the Roman Church, he's commemorated. His feast day is today, March 27th. So really didn't have anything new with that. But I had read another account, and this one I think is fairly accurate, where John the Hermit, his spiritual father, kept him busy in training, ascetic training. He had to water dead sticks. The spiritual father would put a stick in the ground and tell John to water it. That was his discipline. He had to water it every day. And he kept it up for a year. And John the Hermit knew it was just a stick. And of course, we hear this story and we think, oh, did it sprout leaves? No, it never did. But his spiritual father was just testing his obedience, if he would continue watering it. John wanted to be his disciple, so he continued watering it. Even though it never sprouted, after a year, his spiritual father said, that's enough. You have obeyed, you have done what I asked you to do, even knowing that this stick wasn't alive and wasn't going to become alive. So, but it was a training to trust what your spiritual father tells you to do. We're going to have some barking going. I think a man's walking out there. So, whether we are quality to be a disciple of one of these hermits, if we're going to obey, the standards, the ideals, if we're going to listen to the spiritual father and take his advice and go through his training regimen and learn to be ascetic in similar ways that the spiritual father did, or what the spiritual father asks of you. I mentioned that time with Dale Francis's rosary that my spiritual father says, no, I want that one. And he knew it was very special to me, but he was testing me. And I said, okay, I'd laid out several things and he chose. I brought things back from my pilgrimage, the pilgrimage that I'd gone in 2003, praying for my mother's soul to get out of New Age, away from New Age, and to stop thinking abortion was okay. She'd gotten into that, thinking, very trendy, popular. I'm going to be with it at age 85 and be for abortion, and she realized she had a conversion. My sisters were praying, all her nieces and all her grandchildren were praying for her, and the prayers were answered. But so I had my spiritual father had prayed for me, and he'd also give me money. I was able to pay him back. I didn't spend much on that trip. And but I wanted him to have something from it. And so I laid out things I got there, plus a couple of my own rosaries. And the one was Dale's. It was a gift. And I guess I was emptying my pocket, and that was in it. And I felt embarrassed to put it back in, So I laid everything out. And he said, no, I want that one. He knew it was a test of if I could detach. And he had a little funny, little smile around his lips, too. He knew what he was up to, testing me. So that's part of the spiritual life, and having a spiritual father is to learn obedience and take their direction. And if we're not going to take the direction, to be very honest and say, no, I don't want to do that. That's more commendable than sneaking with your spiritual father, your spiritual director. It's best to be honest. If you're not ready for the challenge yet, just say, I can't do that. No, I can't yet. Try me again in a year, and they will. A good one will keep working with you so that you can learn holy indifference and spiritual detachment. Holy indifference. Indifference to whatever rosary it is. It wouldn't matter, see. So that took a lot for me to do that, to say, yes, okay, take that, But that's how we learn. Well, so John the Hermit, great souls out there. But anyway, I remember reading that about him. How he would, as a student of this spiritual director, that he watered that stick and learned how to obey. And also then that's the way the spiritual father can know Is this person, is he going to be docile for me, malleable, like God wants us to be too? Well, the dogs, I think, want supper. Do you want supper, Lovey? I think Lovey got envious. He wanted to see what was going on. Mercy was getting her head petted. God bless his real presence in us. Maybe out of this, talking about John, and also the other thing is he went to a monastery. He did not stay. He was at the monastery until he found his own hermitage. But he remained a hermit throughout. Some hermits are a hermit for a year or two and then become monks, and they're not really hermits. That's just a trial period, a vocational seeking. Like Paul, St. Paul, he went out for a short period, but he's not a hermit. He was an evangelist. He found his, what he was to do. He went out to pray and get guidance from God after he converted from Judaism to Christianity. I think he was out 2 to 3 years, and he isn't a hermit. So that's just temporary. That's seeking God's will. Time of discernment, a time of personal spiritual growth with the Lord. Those who are hermits are ones that are for the duration of their lives. So there's one Benedict who was a hermit for a couple of years and then got involved in monasteries. I think he's considered the founder of monasteries, patron of monasteries or something. And there's 2 Anthonys also. One was a hermit for a couple of years and then became a monastic. However, they still call them hermits. So I just like to be accurate for anyone who's thinking about it, or if you want to study hermits. They wouldn't be good hermits to study because they're not really hermits. They were temporary. Tried it out, and that's okay to do. Also, not everybody who feels they have a vocation to be a hermit and lives it for a couple of years may realize, though, the Lord didn't want that for them, or it wasn't for them. They couldn't do it. So, so it's okay to know about that, and to know it's okay then do what God wants of you then. That's why it's good to have a trial time period. Mine was 15 months, but I knew through locutions, not just once, but twice, exactly what God wanted of me. And my spiritual director confirmed it also and affirmed it. Yes, this is your vocation now. And so, I still did 15 months, though, of practicum, postulancy, and novitiate before I had my vows. So, and even then, you're learning all the time. You've never arrived when you're a hermit. You've never arrived at it. There's always things that God will put in there that alter the life. And I think that's probably true of every vocation. A married vocation, you're always growing in a marriage. In the single life. Widows and widowers. Even though, it may not be that you're a widow or widower, you may not live that long after your spouse passes, but you still are evolving, always. So we evolve no matter what vocation we have, not just hermits. And just as it's, if somebody's a widow or a widower, and they think, this is, I'm going to be a consecrated, and you give it 15 months or 18 months and realize, no, I still want to remarry. That's okay, So that's why we hold off on vows until it's really assured for us that. But people go into religious life. I have a good friend who was a religious nun for 10 years. In a religious teaching order. She taught school. I think it was Sacred Heart, Sisters of the Sacred Heart, or something like that. And she and her friend left. They left. It was after Vatican II. They left. They were disappointed with the outcome of Vatican II. So, whatever. Who knows if they actually ever really had a vocation. I think she said she'd had some bad things happen to her growing up. And she felt that was her sort of redemption, even though it wasn't her fault what happened. But so she hadn't really discerned it from a viewpoint, just as a young girl, and immediately went in, I think, after high school. And they educated her and all. She got college through that, but 10 years, and then had a rebound marriage. Somebody who was an alcoholic. That didn't work out. And that, I think, was only 6 months long. She realized it was too soon after leaving, after being in a convent for 10 years. And then in a few years, they married someone, a few more years. And they've been married all these years. So, a soulmate. So, but there again, she recognized that she hadn't discerned, wasn't old enough really, and hadn't been out of the situation that she had been abused to heal or to be able to make such a decision. So God understood, the convent understood, and and I think it helped to have another person in the convent who wanted also to leave, to give her courage. It's a big deal. It can be a big deal. Obviously, very sincere. These vocations can be very sincere in the vocations, and can feel a great reticence or guilt in leaving, and we shouldn't. God understands. If we understand why we made a mistake, or why it was good for a time period to help us understand other aspects of our life. We'd prefer not to go, have to go through that circuitous route, but praise God if we do and learn things about ourselves. So anyway, John the Hermit was a true blue hermit, and while he was in the monastery, it was a waiting period till he could locate a place that would be very secure for him. It's supper time, isn't it, Mercy? God bless his real presence. Mercy is the keeper of the schedule. Much love to you all.